Hi, my name is Diane Schuster, and you're watching one of a series of videos that demonstrate the capabilities of COZYROC SSIS Plus, which is a software suite of tasks and components for SQL Server integration services. These demonstrations were built using SQL Server Integration Services 2005. The COZYROC tasks and components are available for SQL Server Integration Services 2005, 2008, 2008 R2, 2012, and 2014 in both 32-bit and 64-bit editions. For more information, please visit www.cozyroc.com. In this video, we're going to talk about the Quickbooks Destination component, which you can use to integrate or migrate data to the QuickBooks Online Edition as well as the Desktop Edition. In this demo, I'll be using a QuickBooks Desktop Edition. This component comes in a package of tasks and components called SSIS Plus that complements the standard SSIS. In COZYROC SSIS Plus product, we provide source and destination components for QuickBooks which support both 32-bit and 64-bit modes. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how easy it is to create and update customer fields in QuickBooks. The first thing we need to do is add our QuickBooks Destination component to the Toolbox. So we right mouse click in the Toolbox and we go down to Choose Items. And then we go to SSIS Data Flow Items. And we scroll down to find the QuickBooks Destination component. And there it is. You can see that it's a COZYROC component. I click OK. And there you can see our QuickBooks Destination component is now in the Toolbox. I'm going to show you how to set up QuickBooks so that it allows our component to access it. We go to Preferences and then Integrated Applications and then Company Preferences. And you want to make sure that this first checkbox is not checked so that applications can access the company file. And you may want to check the second checkbox. Click OK. And then we're going to set up a user account for our connection manager to use. And we already have it set up, but I'll go through it with you. So we put in the username and the password, and then in this case we're allowing it to access all areas of QuickBooks. You may want to limit its access. Now we go to Next and we confirm yes, and we finish. And we'll close this out. Now we're going to go to the QB connector, so we go to the program files, COZYROC SSIS, and then Tools. And now you see our QB connector. And we start that up, and you can see our port is 3081, and we have set the mode to multi-user. And we'll go to Users, and we'll type in that user that we set up in QuickBooks. And now we choose the company, which is the demo for COZYROC. We add that user. Security should be set to Embedded Certificate because that's the default for QuickBooks and we haven't changed it. And now we start it. Now we're going to configure our connection manager. So we scroll down till we find QuickBooks in the list of connection managers. And for our server, we're going to type in our IP address for the local host, in this case, with the port of 3081. We're going to use that user ID that we had set up in QuickBooks. And for the key, we're putting the password. And now we test the connection. And this will only pop up the first time you're connecting to this company file. So here you see the default is set to no. You don't want any application to read or modify the company file. Check one of the yes options. Also make sure you take a look at this last checkbox and determine if you want it checked. And now we need to confirm that we want to allow this. And now we say we're done. Now you can see our test connection succeeded. So we'll close out of that. Now I'll show you how to configure the component to create customers in QuickBooks. Now we'll configure our QuickBooks Destination, so we drag it onto the canvas. And we go into it and we select the connection manager that we just set up, and it's already set to create for the action, and we find customer. We're going to be adding 4 customers, and we exit from there, and now we're going to connect the 2 components so that we have data feeding into our Quickbooks Destination. And now we can go map that data. So I like to expand this so that I can see the whole name of each field or each column. It looks like everything was mapped except for the customer ref full name. So we go down and we find the appropriate column in Quickbooks to map that to, which in this case is name. And now everything is mapped. Just go check error output. We're going to actually have this component direct information about the records that it creates to this file, which will be an Excel file. So we're going to use the Excel Destination Plus component from COZYROC to receive that information. And first we need to connect the error output from Quickbooks Destination to that component. This is just part of the setup process. Now we go back in and we'll choose the connection manager that I have set up for Excel, and we're using a different worksheet which we call error output, and it looks like we have 5 fields that are put in there so that the QuickBooks component can provide information to us about the edit sequence and the list ID that QuickBooks assigns to the new customers, as well as a way for it to tell us if there were errors in any records. And now we're ready to execute. And it was successful. So we'll go down and stop debugging. And now we'll go check the execution results. We have no warnings, and we wrote 4 rows because we were adding 4 new customers to QuickBooks. Now this spreadsheet contains the results of our Create Customer action. As you can see, we have 2 fields called ID and Edit Sequence, and those were provided by QuickBooks for the newly created customer records. And we'll be using those ID and Edit Sequence fields to make updates to these customers in a moment. And you can see this also contains all of the data that we added for each of these new customers. Now I'll show you how to configure the component to update the customers we just added to QuickBooks. Here's the data I'm going to use to update the customer records that we just created in QuickBooks. As you can see, I'm using the ID and the Edit Sequence fields that were returned to us from the Create operation. I'm changing all of the zip codes from ending in 111 to ending in 222. And I am also introducing an error so that I can show you how to determine which record has an error. I have changed Beverly Blakely's ID to be an invalid ID. Now we'll configure the QuickBooks Destination component to update the customers with the data that I just showed you. So we select the same connection manager. I already updated that connection manager to point to the new Excel file. And we change the action to update, and our object will be customer again. And now we exit from there and we'll connect the 2 components so that we have data feeding into the QuickBooks Destination component. We go back in and now we can do the mapping. And we have 7 columns that are going to be mapped. And the ID and the edit sequence are required by QuickBooks in order to determine what customer record we want to update. The edit sequence field has already been mapped because the name is exactly the same, but we need to map ID to list ID. And we also need to manually map the customer ref.fullname to name. And now all 7 of our columns are mapped. And we'll go to error output, and we change this so that our information from the QuickBooks component is redirected to our Excel file. so that we get information about errors as well as the records that were successfully updated. So now we're configuring our Excel Destination Plus component, and we have all of the columns selected, and we say delete invalid column reference, and we exit, and now we go back in, and the component says do we want it to fix itself, and we say yes. So now we have all of the columns there that we are updating, as well as the information that it always provides about the results of the operation. So we're ready to execute. And we have success, so we'll stop debugging. And we'll go check our execution results. And this says that 4 rows were written, but we did have an error in one of those records, so we'll go take a look. Now we're looking at the Excel file where the results of our customer update operation were written. And you can see there's an error code column, and the -1s mean that those records were updated successfully, and the other error code of 3240 for Beverly Blakely means that there was an error, which that is good because that's where we introduced an error, and it makes it really easy to find the record that has an error. And here we have a very nice error description of what the problem was. Now we're looking in QuickBooks itself, and here's one of the customers that was updated. We have a 222 at the end of the zip code. And now we'll go look at Beverly Blakely, and you can see that her zip code was not updated. In this demonstration, I showed you how easy it is to create and update customer fields in QuickBooks. This component comes in a package of tasks and components called SSIS Plus that complements the standard SSIS. And that concludes this demo.